John Warner IV is an author, historian with a passion for hidden history, revisionist historical narratives, vintage cars, and the unsung heroes of World War II. And all the profits from his books go to wounded veteran charities. John Warner is a skeptic about historical records, including textbooks. And for over 30 years, a perspective that's been well honed. His father is a 5-term U.S. Senator John Warner III from Virginia. Was also the Secretary of the Navy and chairman of the Armed Services Committee during the Vietnam War. His mother, Catherine Mellon, daughter of philanthropist Paul Mellon, was an activist who protested that war. She taught him to question authority, think independently, and speak his mind. Thanks to his family and his own dogged persistence, he's been behind the scenes with some of the most powerful and influential people in the U.S. and global history. In his historical novels, Little Anton and the new sequel, Lion, Tiger, Bear, he discloses the shocking hidden history, possibilities of advanced technology, and the covert schemes of the fascist power elite. When he's not doing research, he's also a true gearhead, quenching the thirst for knowledge about racing cars. First as a professional Grand Am and American Le Mans Series racing driver, middle of the pack man, behind the wheel of a Corvette GT1 and a Porsche GT3R, and later researching the history of the sport for his NASCAR DVD series and his Little Anton book series. In fact, he started writing during a 2-year-long recovery from a racing accident. His long recovery gave him time to do deep research on the topics. His research continues to this day and is bringing forth some pretty astonishing and disturbing truths, which he posts regularly on his website and Twitter, and we dig into right here. Sit back, relax. John Warner IV is a true American hero, and I can't wait for you to hear this one. I had to edit this thing a lot. It was 4 hours total, so we're just going to jump right into it. This is part 2 of our epic talk. And if you haven't listened to part 1, go do that right now. Here, we jump in talking about cars and everything else. So,
I mean, I feel like, we're massively hard done by in the UK. Like, you guys have got all these cars and stuff. And I know, John, you seem like you're not, Warner, you're clearly a billionaire or whatever. That's normal. But John, you don't seem to be. And there's all these other people I see pop up on Twitter.
I'm not a billionaire.
Cinemas and things in this country, mate, we all live in little boxes and how'd you get all this shit?
It's a bad habit. I can tell you
John
that.
lives in Ohio. I live my farm's in the wilds of the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. I mean, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting an old Chrysler or Ford or some antique car on the road. It's just a passion, a passion for history, and it's also art. I mean,
It is.
Old cars are beautiful, and they were beautifully designed. I think
They're
everything
beautiful.
modern kind of looks like an alien spaceship with an angry insect. But the old cars had style.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, yeah. No, they were all works of art.
You can drive. I think there's something to it.
It's like driving a piece of art, I mean, that's before I had Stella, honest to God, the last car I bought was a 52 Chevy 2-door hardtop. And I'm like, this is the last car I'm ever buying. I don't care. I'm going to drive this in the snow. This is beautiful. All the windows go down. It's an amazing piece of, I got to put a 350 in it. It's just great. I just drive it whatever. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Now I need to protect this other little human that's not. Yeah. I was like, okay, so I bought a Volvo, but no, other than that, I was like, yeah, I don't need to buy cars. Like Warner said, they're like works of art. There was people that they're artistic works, but they're motorized, and it's just a beautiful thing. But like you said, they're literally everywhere, right?
It is. I mean, obviously, I'm definitely too hung up on physical possessions. I'm supposed to be more spiritual, living in a tent, and getting rid of our physical, our accumulation of things. But
right.
I sit out in the woods and meditate, or I drive down the road with no radio on in an old car, and it is meditation.
Absolutely.
When you daydream is a meditation.
Yeah.
And I think about everything we're talking about and more when I'm just driving down a country road, going slow, and in the old Cadillac. Everyone meditates and has their quiet time in nature. I sit in the physical. I mean, woods behind my house. I mean, I live in the woods, and so I have that. But meditation is where you find it. And the spiritual quietness of the mind, I have to do something, turn the radio off. But even when you're listening to music, that's still meditation. I need to listen to music, New Age or something. But either or, your mind is going. That is a form of meditation.
I know some people like really use running or like hard running exercise for meditation, just to get that clarity. You know, when you really go for it and your brain just sort of tunes out and gets into the state.
Yeah, I think hiking in nature is a really great thing to do. And you can do that pretty much anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you live in Manhattan, but you can do it in Central Park. I used to do it. But England, you've got beautiful green spaces everywhere, unlike the United States, which mow everything down and put strip malls up.
Yes.
I love the way the English villages, it's like here's the village, and here's the farmland around it, and there's no McDonald's or, Dunkin' Donuts. And that's beautiful about England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales. It's beautiful.
Well, I can walk out of my house and just go 2 streets back and I'm into the middle of nowhere, into the countryside. Yeah. So it's lovely. Yeah, I'm really lucky for that. And at the moment we're into autumn, so it's just beautiful. Like the way the colours are amazing and the smells are amazing and everyone's having little fires and stuff like that. And it's lovely.
It's really important to do that. And, I tell everyone, that's a really important thing to do because a lot of this stuff is overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me and for my wife. And you got to take a break and you got to chill and you got to do everything like that.
So when you say overwhelming, like, do you feel like you're on a kind of a mission? What do you think? How do you feel about your journey in all this, man? I know John's not even here, but
I think everyone's on a mission. Everyone. Mm-hmm. And if your mission is to just do your thing and do your life, that's fine. You don't have to go crazy. But ever since I was a kid, I was always this rebellious, independent thinker. I love space and sci-fi, and it's my passion, along with race cars and the car thing. But I'll wait till John comes back. This is a trivia question, but there's a lot of back-engineered ET technology in cars. Carbon fiber, ballistic glass, aerospace coatings, that the stuff you wrap things in, the high heat coatings, all this stuff is purportedly back engineered stuff.
Wow.
So the automotive industry has benefited greatly, not just the aerospace, but the automotive.
So, if you listed the items, would there be like a sham inventor put in place for each of these? Or would there be would they have had to create like a pathway of how these products have come into being?
Well, it's all under corporate. Everything in the everything sensitive has been private hands of the corporation. That's why Congress can't get their mitts on it. So they can just say, "Hey, GM, how would you like this new stuff?" And GM says, "Hell yeah!" And they get carbon fiber. And I wanted to ask John. Here's a trivia question. About the car industry and. I think there's a lot of back-engineered ET technology in cars, microchips, carbon fiber, aerospace coatings, different alloys.
Right.
Which was the first car in the world to ever have fiber optics, which are purportedly back-engineered?
Wow. Probably BMW. No, not even close.
The 1968 Corvette had fiber optic warning lights near the transmission.
What?
Yeah.
No idea.
I believe so. I believe this is correct. I think so. It's the first car in the world. So GM was the first to use, they were like, what are we going to use fiber optics for? Well, it's tested in the top of the line Corvette.
So the light would go to like a warning light?
The lights would never go bad.
Oh.
And I think, I want to say it was LED, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
LED lights are another back-engineered technology.
So, all right, here's a question then. In terms of so we're talking about fiber optics. That's something that Colonel Philip Corso was talking about in Day After Roswell.
Right.
Some of the tech, and that's one of the things he said he reckoned came from it, along with Velcro.
Yeah. Although ours is nowhere near as good as the real stuff.
Right.
I want to see some alien Velcro. Is that a lie? Is it kind of a
you
lie?
had some on top of your head. I can stick something to my beard, but
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying our engineers aren't clever. We have very clever engineers.
Right.
And there are stories that say that, in this trade, there's a lot of mining going on the earth. And I posted something about that. I think mining has been going on earth for hundreds of millions of years. People come here, mine their thing for a couple of years, and then they split.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a radical theory, but a lot of mesas don't make sense. You have all these mountains in the Andes, then you have this flat mesa.
Right.
That looks like strip mining. And then they show these things in Peru that look, this guy mined earth. And it looks just like a gold mining pit, a modern day gold mining pit.
Right.
Like, oh no, these are spiritual centers and they're sacred. And it's like, yes.
Strip mine.
And beginning, they were strip mining, I think.
Yeah.
And so out there, the word is, Ford Electric, Ford GM, Cat, Diesel, they're all making electric stuff, 0 point electric stuff that's being used out on asteroids and the nearest star systems so people can mine. That's what the space mining bill was all about.
Yeah, that was huge. That was Trump, right?
I think everyone was like, what? Space mining bill? Obviously the moon, it's not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
They've been mining the moon, I think, since the 70s.
Yeah, helium-3, huge thing. Helium-3, huge.
Other rare earth minerals that you can't find on Earth that are hard. Afghanistan has a lot of rare earth minerals, which is why we probably have underground tunnels and we can mine all we want. But it took us a long time to dig those, and hence that's why we were occupied. That's a possibility. So, I think, apparently we're very clever engineers and we make really good, tough stuff. It's like a Ford F1, F200 pickup or whatever, 2500. We make tough stuff. And apparently, in the ET trade, they bring us stuff like we have stuff to trade for you, and it's like, no, we've had a lot of that. Bring us something really new and good because we've had 70 years of people bringing us stuff. And at first, it was, and we have the reputation, according to some researchers, that we can take like hot rodders. Mm-hmm. We could take junkyard parts from out there and back engineer them and make them into really good, solid, not the most advanced stuff out there. Obviously, it's probably fourth dimensional, but not bad.
Yeah.
So people come to us. I think there's a big galactic trade going on. That's part of this dirty laundry. They don't want people to know. It's like, where are all these missing trillions gone to? And it's like, you have no idea. They back engineered all this technology, then sold it back to you in the laptops we're using. This is ballistic glass, LEDs, microchips and alloys and circuitry. Hello.
What's next then? Like, in your opinion, what's next? Do you think that? I mean, is there ever going to be? Well, disclosure is a weird word for me because I'm never sure what disclosure is going to be anyway. What is it a disclosure of? But is there going to be anything happening? I mean, for example, yesterday the NASA guy came out and said some comments that a lot of people have gone, oh, wow, he's talking about the possibility of
Bill Nelson,
our origins and extraterrestrials, but it was really vague. It was just
vague.
Yeah, just vague. It was just the media soundbite stuff. But he said it, so people pick up on that. And then you got the TTSA stuff, or what was TTSA, which now seems to just be kind of, I don't know. I mean, they have to talk around in circles. So what is the next step? Will we ever going to get any kind of reality?
Well, the thing that I'm going to jump in for 1 second, because what I've been really researching this, and like Lou Elizondo has a biological something degree, right? He's like biomechanical, in virus or something, right? So he has like that degree. And if you look at the TTSA's board, they're all like envirologist and biologist and all their like biology and virology and
all warfare.
All of the board of TTSA is all these biologist people, and I'm thinking, what the hell is this all about?
Every man worked for the CIA. I mean, these people are all into that. They were all given parts of the UFO file to work from, and they probably helped create some horrible bioweapons, of which we may be reaping the rewards right now. I mean, I'm in terrible pain at the moment. I'm still suffering from COVID. I mean, they didn't kill me. Sorry.
I'm glad you're still here, Warner. I just want to put that on the record. I'm really
for the
glad you're still
moment,
here.
but I'm 60 years old. But if I had to guess on the 30, 40 years that I've sort of been dabbling in the UFO, and the last 20 sort of full time, if I had to speculate, I was hopeful in 2017, but like everyone else, my hopes are dashed, except for the people who really have bought into that and say, Lou is he's going to be our point man. I think we're going to get in the next 20 years, we're going to get disclosure, but not the kind we want. They're going to say most of it is ours. Sure, there were a few crashes back in the 40s and 50s, but it's all over with now. Sure, every once in a while, maybe an EQT craft is out there, but you can't see it without night vision goggles. But look at all this neat technology that we're going to come out with. And oh, by the way, we need recruits for the Space Force. Why? Because we're fighting out there, and they need personnel more than they can just kidnap, young teenagers or whoever they need and train them, to be psychics. Because when you fight out there, according to the super soldiers, let's I give them credit because their narratives jibe with each other. And they say you have to be psychic. You have to be prepared. You have to be a little bit more advanced of a human being to even do the lowliest job out there, because it's a different reality. It's a fourth dimensional and fifth dimensional reality and higher. But really, it's where the fighting is. I think it's all fourth dimensional. So we're going to get a disclosure that meets the bill of the Pentagon and the IC and the corporations, and say, sure, sure, aliens exist. They're nice people. We work with some of them. They're very nice. You'll love them. You'll love them. And then
there's these bad guys out there that we got to go fight, though. There's these bad guys.
They'll tell you some of the truth, which is true. There are nice people that we're working with, but then there's some not no nice people, and they won't mention that. And it'll say, go back to school, go back to work, have a nice day.
Yeah.
And you'll have a hoverboard, and you'll have your Tesla electric microcar, and you will go to work for 24 hours a day. I don't know what they're going to do with money. There's a million theories, Jazara law, no money, cryptocurrency. I think eventually money will go away. It'll all be, we're already cash. Half the stores in Virginia won't take cash.
Really?
A lot of them.
If you're just going to hand them like $50, they're not going to take it?
Credit card only.
Wow.
And is this because of COVID, or is this because of the way it is?
I went into the mini mart with a $50 bill to pay for gas and some Pop-Tarts, and he said, I can't change that. I can't change a 50.
Wow.
It's not a lot of money anymore.
Yeah.
Let alone a $100 bill.
Jeez.
No one will take a $100 bill. Hardly anyone.
I'm just going to start carrying $100 bills.
That's like the 50s over here. Like nobody's.
That's
even,
why the 20s are in the
ATMs.
ATMs. They don't want it. Plus, you can, it's a lot of counterfeit. But other than that, they want us to own a cashless society so they can absolutely have 100% control. I had one of my friend's kids. He's in his 20s in college. He's like, I want a chip. He says, I want an Elon Musk chip. I can download music automatically and listen to it with an earplug.
Yeah.
And I said, my God, don't do that. Don't ever do that. But I think nanites and nanotechnology is real, and God knows what's in all these vaccines and other things, that they're prepping us for the next stage of humanity. They're already doing it if you know what to look for.
So this is the
whole virus may be all about that.
Yeah. I mean, like the transhumanist stuff, like it's a big deal. It's been there a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, the U.S. Army has public videos saying, look at our exoskeletons, and we're going cyborg in the future.
So this is a weird thing. The information security thing that I'm into, there's Splunk. There's a thing called Splunk, which is a log aggregator. So you like everything computer-wise you have, you throw all your logs into this thing, and it parses it, and you can have people watch it. You can write code to go, if this thing happens, I need an alert. If this thing happens, you can do this. And I had friends that were at a military version of this. So the military uses it. I don't know which military, probably all of them. But the military version of it has where it's embedded in, I don't know if it's the actual clothing or if they're injected into the special forces or whatever, but supposedly this thing is it's orchestration, right? So say you got these group of special forces guys that are in some country, and one of them gets shot in the arm, and it goes right through his arm, and it goes right through the back. Well, the thing knows right away that the sensor goes, the sensor goes, and immediately once that happens, it goes, we need a helicopter for evac. We need the prep crew in Germany to be able to do the surgery. We need this guy over here and that, and then all that shit happens. Like nobody's doing it. It's all AI. It's just boom. So the thing comes up, grabs the guy. They already know he's shot. They already know he's going. They get the surgeon on the plane. They get him prepped there, and then they get the guy wherever he's at, and he's fine. That shit existed like 15 years ago.
Yeah, everything that's public, as Stephen Greer is famous for saying,
is like 20, 30 years ago, right?
30 years old.
Yep.
At least. And so when they start talking about these super soldier suits, which the U.S. Army and other corporations have been talking about, I make fun of them in my memes on Twitter.
Yeah.
But people need to look into those corporations. They're working on this stuff.
They have it.
When a bullet hits you, if it'll stop a 308 or 223 caliber bullet. But if you get hit with a 50 caliber,
done. Yeah.
It'll go through, but the same thing. It's self-healing, and it gives you medication from it. And this is what these super soldiers, everyone makes fun of them. In disclosure world, most people do make fun of them. They've been talking about this for 20 years.
All right, so take it.
People are like, oh, these people are crazy. They don't know what they're talking. They're all mass hysteria. If you go back 30 years, when people were talking about gray aliens abducting people, you were on the fringe. And people called you mad in the UFO world. And I remember when in the 90s, Dolan and Greer were talking about abductions, and Linda Moulton Howe was talking about that. They were like, these people are crazy. And now those guys are the conservatives. See what's happening? It's like, oh no, these people claiming to be super soldiers off world, and they're all crazy. And it's like, that's what the people that you're following, Richard Dolan and everything, they called them crazy 30 years ago. You don't remember it.
So, right, the super soldier.
Give me the radical tinfoil hats.
What really interests me about it, though, is that you got the stuff you're talking about where we've got like tech. So we can sort of say, all right, exoskeletons, like cool vests that'll heal wounds and send information back to mission control and all that stuff. But then you got the other side, which you were touching on there, which is that these people are sent out to outer quadrants of the galaxy to fight battles. And when I don't know much about this element, but when I've looked into it, there's an idea that these people believe that they go and spend years out there serving and then have their minds wiped and come back. Yeah? Is this something you know about? This is the crazy stuff.
Is it the blue chicken thing?
Yeah, I think it goes down the blue chicken stuff, doesn't it?
I just don't know. I just don't know about that.
No, and he's been a Debbie Downer about it all. But I'm not going to get into that. But a lot of this stuff, a lot of people say, oh, well, I need proof and documents and facts. And it's like, well, you're never going to get any of that. The deep state can manufacture all the facts and false video and voice of God technology and holographics they want. So, they're not stupid. So the medbed thing. Now, all the super soldiers talk about the medbed thing. It's been going on. I think maybe the first mention of it was 15 years ago. I'm not sure, actually. But when I had my meeting with Chris Mellon, I said, I've heard we have medbed technology that can cure absolutely everything. You can cancer in kids, cancer in adults, heal anything with sound, color, light, and vibration.
Right.
Frequency.
Tesla.
Yeah, Tesla.
He said, I'm aware of the technology. And I said, let's you and I agree that work to get that out for the public good.
Yeah.
We both agreed on that.
Wow.
Everything else, I showed him how to black triangle craft flew and the plasma. So he didn't seem to understand all that. But on that point, we agreed. And so there's talk about med beds coming online, but they give us the version 1.0 when they have version 1,000. And so they're going to do it for, ultrasound and MRI. That technology has all come from this, the military technology. Everyone's like, oh, I don't see any proof. Well, there's proof for you. And they are coming out with med beds, but they won't cure cancer because cancer is a multi-billion-dollar industry every year. And they pump. I've had 5 friends die of cancer in front of me. Wasted away to nothing. One was a U.S. Army colonel he was a head doctor at the Pentagon, Trip Cassells. And he wasted away from 190 pounds to 90 before he died. And he was doing the green juice and all the holistic stuff, didn't do a damn thing, because cancer is one of those things where purportedly, the Anunnaki or someone else has given the human race, so we won't grow too old or overpopulate. And so I think they have the ability to cure cancer, and they won't let it out because you're messing with big pharma, big medicine, and big cancer. By their own admission, these cancer physicians say that we have progressed in the cancer technology since the 50s, 7%.
Jeez.
Now, that is a crime against humanity.
Completely.
That's one of the reasons I came out was this subject. They can cure anything. And those kids are dying of cancer every day, those little children. God, give it for the children and veterans. Give it to everyone. But, the veterans have earned it.
Yeah.
They can't let it out.
Kids are completely fucking innocent, man. There's no...
They give us the little things. There's something called a SCENAR device, SCENERAR. And it's an ultrasound portable device that's new. And they give us the little toys to play with in our Western medicine, which is horrible. It needs to be holistic like Eastern medicine, because that helps the body heal itself. But, ask any Native American, and Western medicine is this twisted torture, fluoride. That never helped me. I had like 40 cavities.
Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts. You got to put fluoride in the Pop-Tarts, and then it's going to cure everything.
And my great-grandfather had a hand in putting fluoride in the drinking water in Michigan. Andrew Mellon.
Wow.
And, of course, it calcifies the pineal gland, which no one wants to talk about, hardly. No one in the mainstream medicine, that's for damn sure.
Because we don't understand.
It's the Pop-Tarts.
We don't understand anything about the brain. Like we don't. We don't. We have zero understanding. I mean, we have some, but like the scope of the pineal gland and anything else that goes on there, it's like, it's just, we kind of get an idea, but we don't really know.
Yeah, in out in the wilds of Michigan, they call it a twofer. You get 2 for 1. It probably helps to prevent cavities. But guess what? It's toxic waste from the aluminum industry.
That you had to get rid of, right?
The Nazis, SS had it in big piles in the death camps. When Patton and Ike liberated them with cameramen, that was very smart. There were big white piles. And I talked to some World War II veterans who had been in the camps, and they were like, "Oh, I saw them. Those were fluoride because it's used as a rat poison."
Wow.
And the guards said they threw it in the water to pacify the prisoners.
And it worked.
Yeah.
So,
but it makes your teeth white. It makes your teeth white as shit.
Have more prison riots in the death camps?
What?
Probably because of the mass amounts of fluoride they put in the drinking water.
So if you have huge amounts of that in your diet or going into your body, it subdues you. Stupid to some degree. Yeah.
Yes.
Toxic, but they didn't care. They wanted to kill everyone in the death camps anyway. But imagine, even if you're starving and you're wasted away to 80 pounds, why not riot? You're going to die anyway. They knew they were headed to die.
But there was a lot of like psychic warfare and subliminal warfare and audio warfare. I mean, they did a lot of things. I mean,
they never talk about the fluoride in the death camps.
No, they don't.
Because this is part of that third rail. They don't want you to know because people would panic. I mean, 3% of Europe uses fluoride. We're only 0 now. In the U.S., it's still 67%.
So I grew up I moved from like Toledo to the country, and they had a thing during the school week where it was like, it's time for your fluoride treatment. And I'm like, what is this? And they would come out with a cup, and you had to like take the cup when I was in grade school, and you're supposed to swish this cup around for whatever. And I remember seeing these kids that were like, my mom says, no, I don't have to. And I'm like, all right, cool. We have a note. You don't have to. And like, so I was finally like, I'm not doing this shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was all these like, well, why is this a thing where they're bringing this cup to you at school and you have to do it? So that's for your teeth. And I'm like, absolutely no.
It's insidious history. A dentist told my wife, that when her 2 kids were small, he said, do the drops on the teeth. And they were very little, 2 years old, 3. And she said, my God, it puts them right to sleep. And he says, oh, it has a mild narcotic effect. Don't worry about it. So you can look all this stuff up. I mean, if people don't believe me, I mean, we're
no, you know what? I was reading about this recently, like, but you know, what interests me though is like, I mean, your great grandfather was involved in that, yeah?
Yeah.
Your great grandfather.
I have the documents that show it.
Yeah. So, like, but as
he was a psychopath. I mean, he was a robber baron.
Yeah.
And a supporter of Hjalmar Schacht, Hitler's private banker. You know, Sullivan and Cromwell, Alan Dulles, John Foster Dulles. Very dark stuff.
Yeah.
But what do you think got him into that shit? Sorry, Jean-Luc, but what, like, how did he just go, cool, I'm going to go along with this?
That's what I'm interested in, the psychology of it. Like, yeah.
All right. At the turn of the century, they created the Fed. I think, 1904?
Yeah.
Who was on board with that? Morgan, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Andrew Mellon, the Mellon brothers. All 4 of them were in banking.
Yeah.
You know, once you take a taste of money and greed, it's an aphrodisiac. Power. I mean, Andrew Mellon was close and economic confidant to Harding and Hoover, and then he was Secretary of the Treasury. And all those guys were in on the Great Depression. They made money on the front side and the back side.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, robber barons are the worst. It's like today's billionaires. Oh, Elon Musk is so altruistic. Yeah, in public on CNN.
Yeah.
You know, it's nonsense. My uncle is a billionaire. He's in railroads. He told me, he's like, I work with the CIA and the intelligence community. I haul classified cargoes on his railroad, Pan Am Systems. I mean,
but what can you do though at that point? I mean, do you have the? I mean, at that point, if you have that kind of money and the power, do you tell the CIA to fuck off, or do they just like, you're going to do this and you're like, cool, I'm going to make a bunch of money. All right.
No, I mean, I think, you know, there are some altruistic billionaires.
Yeah.
But I think they're read the Riot Act, and I think they're blackmailed.
All right. So that's when like Bill Gates gets Epsteined or whatever, right?
That's the whole Epstein's Island was mostly about blackmail. But you know, Bill Clinton enjoyed the hell out of himself.
Well, who didn't?
Disgusting.
Probably over there. I mean, I'm just trying to say, like they set that up to where you think that's the best thing in the world for you, and then somebody comes back and you're like, you remember what you did? You're going to do what we're going to forever now, right?
I'm shocked the whole Epstein thing came out at all.
Yeah, me too, to be honest.
I wonder if Trump had a hand in getting that. Now, see, I'm not going to get into politics. I don't believe in politics. Nonsense. Both sides, all sides are nonsense. But I wonder if he had the cojones and I've heard that a lot of the military were behind him getting him elected. I wonder if he got that and a few other things out. Because you can't put that shit back in the box, no matter who in the deep state wants to. Epstein and Epstein Island, that is out of the box. And people can't argue with it either.
I mean, so, all right, so now it's time to talk about the Epstein stuff. So what do you think about Epstein? So obviously we've got the links to Maxwell and Mossad, I guess, like a CIA Mossad sort of blackmail situation. You bring people to the island, like put them in compromising situations,
create evidence, and then blackmail them with it, right?
Yeah,
it's the other side of it.
It's just like Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, but the temple.
You come to this great party, and you can have all the prostitutes and teenage girls you want.
What's the ideology though? Like, to go back to like the occult. I mean, It's got the temple there and stuff. So what are they? What was he? What is he?
Oh, the Epstein's temple that was based on a Turkish bathhouse.
Yeah.
Now, okay, this is going to go dark, and I want to warn people, but that Turkish bathhouses have a creepy reputation. Now, what I've read and studied is that in the old days, or it's probably still, all these bathhouses, they're tiled on the outside and they're tiled on the inside. Mm-hmm. They're bathhouses, so they all have drains. Mm-hmm. So if you want to cut throats and drink blood and do your Moloch rituals, what better place than an all ceramic a bathhouse that all the evidence goes down the drain?
Right.
So this is what you think it is? Like
this is what we have to come to terms with our world. There's a dark underbelly, and we've got to understand it. everyone says, "Oh, you're being negative." It's like, no, I'm a realist. You have to balance the dark and the light. We have to shine light on the darkness.
Absolutely, and you don't have to look very far. I mean, even across the world. I mean, but the stuff that was going on in Belgium in the 90s with like serial killers, kids going missing, getting linked all the way back up the judicial system, all the way into government, and then you got the stuff like in Paris, like where you got like these orgies, and it all comes out, but then it all gets.
What is a castle? What is a medieval castle made of?
What's it? What? Sorry.
A medieval castle all around Europe. What are they made of?
Limestone.
Right, they're made of stone. Different kinds of stone. So that's piezoelectric, and you've got earth energy. Just like a star fort or a bastion fort with all the angles. It's sacred geometry. They were all the cathedral builders. They were Freemasons. Now, everyone a lot of people see star forts and these castles. Oh, it was a benevolent worldwide civilization. And I'm just like, no, I'm a military historian. They were built for war. Mm-hmm. But all these castles, there's castle in Belgium. They're all, associated with the dark Illuminati and rituals and pedophilia.
But you got to remember that the same Freemasons built cathedrals.
Yes, I'm not blaming the Freemasons.
I'm just saying. I just want to put that out there. They are the same ones that built the cathedrals as well. Okay,
they're not there. What's going on? They just the builders of them. But all these castles, a lot of them probably were used for rituals and satanic, ritual abuse and murder and sacrifice. No one's going to bother you in, from the year 800 to 2000 in a castle on private land.
Yeah,
it's true.
Now, I've heard they hold Babylonian workings with Crowley up in the royal family's castle in Scotland.
Oh, I can believe it. I mean, he was a
there. I write that into the Lion, Tiger, Bear. I write that. Churchill's briefing him. Did you see the Queen Mother? He's like, yeah, and Belial was not available to me. I don't know why. But that's based on something I read. But it makes sense because the royal family, I'm sorry, all the royals are all into this Babylon workings in the occult. It's just a fact. It's bloodline people, and I'm one of them. I have a friend who thinks I'm Homo capensis bloodline, and I am related to James II and Robert the Bruce, but that's done on a private. This friend of mine does it on a private. Not 23andMe genetic.
Yeah, we got special labs for that. We don't need to do the ancestry DNA thing, right?
So they seek out bloodliners because you're more. I think these bloodline people, like myself, you're more apt to produce a cattle stock where you can find those 3%ers. And I think that's what it is. All these committee of 300 families and these royal families, they're cattle breeding stock.
Wow.
Or that group of 3% that, rule the world with probably ET help, not good. It's progressive, horrible stuff. And I think that makes sense to me, given the occult and the history and all this stuff. It's, I've read accounts of people going to these castles, and that's why there's bad energy and ghosts and trapped dimensions.
I'll be right back. You guys keep talking very bad.
Yeah, these castles. I mean, it's disgusting. And they were warfare. They were built for strongholds for warfare. Not much positive going on in a castle.
No, I was doing a lot of reading about some of the SS castles, like Himmler up in the mountains and
same thing. Wolfsburg, and I write about that in my book. There's a castle in Silesia that they use, Fürstenstein.
Is that the one that has the like a kind of beehive-shaped chamber? Have you heard about this one?
That's in Germany. That's Wolfsburg.
Wolfsburg. That's
hard to pronounce. The Fürstenstein is a Polish royalty castle that the Nazi SS commandeered, probably the Riesa part of the Riesa complex. Nazi Bell rockets, free energy. It's associated with that. We know it was a fallback position for Hitler. Hitler had his outpost in Poland near the Russian, not too far from the Russian front. But the Fürstenstein castle was a fallback position.
Right. Okay.
That's known. That's written about.
I find it interesting. I mean, as you know, like with the architecture elements, like the channeling of power and all that stuff, because that's what my granddad was into, like the writing about. So like, so my first introduction to that really was reading through his stuff. So then, and then meeting you and talking about that stuff too. It's cool, man. I love it. Again, a synchronicity. But like, you know, like the idea of energy being formed in these places, like is it egregores or do you believe in that element? Like, can you harness that, do you think?
Yes, I think the three biggies are cathedrals, well, churches, but cathedrals and churches, these star forts and castles. What do they all share? And that's sacred geometry. Mm-hmm. Now, energy is energy. It's neutral. Use it for whatever you wish. So they're built on ley line crossings and hotspots. We know the Nazis built all their radio towers and bunkers on long ley lines. Mm-hmm. And the Union Pacific Railroad built the telegraph wires.
Mm.
You know,
America,
had U.S. Army geomancers for the Union Pacific Railroad. So the telegraph lines only work when you use a telluric energy pathway. Now, in England, they call them ley lines. But ask any electrical engineer, they know what, underground energy is. They know it. Tesla knew it, the light bulbs. So you've got cathedrals, star forts, castles, and churches. They're built to a sacred geometry way. A cathedral is an analog waveform generator. So the sound, vibration, all the windows and everything, it's all sacred geometry. It has to do with sound. Like in Freemasonry, it's Masonic. Masonic, sonic.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're harnessing energy for whatever you want. It could be for military purposes. I'm not sure how the forts use that, but maybe to stimulate your troops or whatever. Churches use it to harness spiritual energy, and the castles, they harness that energy. It's a defensive stronghold position, but it's also could be a chamber for we know about the dungeons. They all had dungeons. Well, that's not very nice.
Right.
That's not positive. It's horrible. And so we know that they were built as torture chambers and all this, multi-purpose.
Yeah.
And Babylon workings were probably done in all of those constructions. Not that they were built as evil. Energy is just energy. You're harnessing the natural earth energy for whatever purpose you want. That's why someone wrote to me and says, should we burn all the churches someday? And I'm like, no. The cathedrals and churches can be,
utilized for good.
Religions are kind of mind control. They're I'm not a fan of them, but I understand a lot of people need that. It's like they can be very positive places. Mm-hmm. Energy is just energy. It's neutral.
Well,
use it for whatever you want.
An egregore is created when enough energy in masonry. An egregore is one of those things where you just the spirit and the working of all the things is kind of embeds itself into the structure or the group of people or wherever you're at. And I've done some research in egregores as well. So it's like the egregore where you walk in. I had a buddy of mine that just started going down the Masonic journey, and he was like, same thing between you guys. I don't know, whatever. But he was like, I put him in touch with this local lodge, and he was like, all right, I'm just going to go and hang out. He went in, and he was like, I'm really introverted. I don't like talking to people. I don't like hanging out with people. I don't like going. But when I walked in, he's like, I felt like home. I felt like I'd been there forever. He was like, everything was cool. I'm shaking hands. I'm doing things I've never done before. And I'm talking to people. And I saw a picture of my grandpa. My grandpa was the master of the lodge. And I saw another picture of my grandpa. And he's like, but while I'm there, I got this feeling that it's like, he's like, almost like I'm stoned. That's what literally what he said to me. He's like, I'm just chill. I'm just really cool. Everybody's awesome. He's like, I leave there and it kind of stays with me for a little bit when I go home and I'm hanging out. And he's like, is that what it is? And I'm like, for you, yeah. But I mean, like, that's kind of like the egregore that is built up with the energy of the people that are there. It's kind of in the structure that it's around you or the place. And it's kind of its own living, breathing tulpa in a way, right?
My first experience of anything like that, I was thinking about this the other day, was when I was like a teenager. I went to, me and a couple of friends went to the local spiritualist church just to see what it was all about. Yeah, we were like, I wonder if they're going to summon some ghosts and basically to be disrespectful, I guess, just as a bit of a fun.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'd been in there maybe 10, 15 minutes, and they started to do some of their spiritualist stuff. And my head felt like it was under pressure. It was like I'd been sent deep, deep, deep underwater, yeah? Like, it's like, oh man, I hated it. I had to get out of there. That was my first time I'd ever experienced anything like it. And whether that was psychosomatic or whether it was something going on in that environment, you know, it was pretty odd. Like, so that was my first taste of it. So I believe it. I believe that you can channel energy and it's there, it's float, it's everywhere, isn't it? It's like,
it's like, why so many ghosts in all these old houses and castles and things? And, you know, they may be, you know, when you die, or energy, you know, or spiritual energy. They just may be trapped between dimensions, because this is everything is about experience, you know, whether it be physical life or spiritual life or, you know, transdimensional, anything. It's just an experience to learn from. This is what philosophy and metaphysics are all about, and Steiner and Blavatsky and the Theosophists will tell you. And it's like, if you want to hang out and not move forward, you know, for a while, go to town. It's an interesting experience, and that's why some of these entities may be trapped. And, you know, when people talk about dimensions, and, you know, a lot of people are like, oh no, I don't understand, and everything. And it isn't easy to understand. But the 12 dimensions of the universe, you know, sacred geometry, 12, 3, 6, 9, everything's based on that. Fibonacci spiral, golden mean, blah blah blah, platonic solids. But, you know, it makes some sense. You know, it's like, let's say you were killed, like the battlefield, Civil War battlefield, you know, up at Antietam in Pennsylvania, is supposed to be haunted. You could see troops moving around at night. Yeah. Some people with some higher psychic powers than I have, I've never seen a ghost, probably see them. And these are people that are like, well, we died on the battlefield, but we're not quite ready to move on to the next chapter, so we're going to hang out and do our thing for a while. And I think that's, you know, it's not my I've learned that from other people. It makes sense to me.
Well, it's funny because like my grandma, she wasn't even slightly. This is on the other side. My granddad was a bit more into the metaphysical, obviously, and he had a ghostly experience with his wife. So I can understand it coming from him because he's already into the metaphysical. But what they heard was they lived in a place called Robin Hood's Bay, which is like a beautiful little beach, like an inlet bay. And in the old days, smugglers used to bring stuff onto that coastline, and there was little caves that would run up into the village from the cliffs. Nice. So you could follow the caves up into the houses, and that's where the smuggler stuff would go. So they lived in a house they were staying in a house at the time that had access to one of these old tunnels, they believed, and they could hear footsteps going up and down the stairs at night, and the smell of seaweed and the smell of the sea, yeah. For them, like, they just believed it. It was like totally normal. But like I say, they were into my granddad was into all that stuff. But on the other side, my dad's mum, when my dad first got his first teaching job, they were given this like old manor house to live in. And apparently when his mum came to stay with him for the first time, she was sat in the kitchen, and it was like the house was probably built in like 1750 or something. And she said that an old servant just walked straight past her, like, you know, clear as day, through one door, out the other, you know, like there was nothing. She says, you know, she's never seen anything to see it. Well, she's been dead a long time, but she believed it. And she saw this thing, and she wasn't into the metaphysical side of the life, you know. So I've got 3 out of 4 grandparents saw ghosts in my family, which I think is pretty cool, man. And I trust them all. They're all kind of normal enough people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I've never seen one. I'd love to see a ghost, but you know, I think there are people who are more attuned to that, because we all beat it to a different frequency, and you know, so I fully believe people do see interdimensional entities. I think it's true. It makes sense from
physical. But so like I'm like almost done with the hunt for the skinwalker, the new skinwalker book, you know, that everybody's joking about and stuff on Twitter, you know, the new Lachatsky book with Callum Kelleher. And it's like all of these things are whatever is attached to the UFO phenomenon is directly attached to like the paranormal / poltergeist phenomenon. Like all these people that were military that were over there came back, and like even to this day have shit flying off their shelves. They're seeing like werewolves in their backyards. They have like, you know, like all kinds of black entities. It's like shadow figures standing over them when they wake up at night. Like all this dread feeling, like all this shit is happening, and it's like, I don't know if Valet or somebody who like hinted at it that like that is completely associated with any type of the UFO experience from forever, and all of it's related. Where all this poltergeist activity and any of this other shit is completely connected to any of the UFO stuff. And you got to think that, you know, Jean-Luc and I, we've talked about this before. It's like fairies, it's like gnomes, it's like all of this shit. It's all of the same thing. So you're dealing with a section of a subsection of your subconscious or your collective subconscious or your collective consciousness that's a part of it. And it's like, are you manifesting this yourself? Are you? But like these people, the thing that I find really interesting is that these people, like the guys that go over there and they're at Skinwalker for 2 weeks or whatever, and they're hanging out and they don't tell their family anything. And they're just hanging out, but their kids and their wives have all this shit happening to them. And in another case where it's one of the women who goes home and her roommate is a male roommate and he's hanging out and all this shit, he gets so freaked out that he moves out because all this shit's happening in their house and, you know, and all this stuff's happening. And it's like, well, what the fuck is that then? How does that tie into all this?
There's two sides with me with all this. And I'm totally, you know, like, this is just an opinion. And like I said, there's two sides of it. It's all real. Skinwalker's a portal to somewhere. There's something under the ground, and you know I could believe that. All right, like I like the wild stuff. Or it's a modern myth in the making, and people are getting fucked with. Basically, I mean, like, how do you make people's family members think they're experiencing stuff like the same way that people have always been made to feel they're experiencing stuff over the last 70 years by beaming thoughts into their brains and having operatives outside doing crazy things? You can create a legend. Like, it's true. This is just a theory, yeah. Like, and what's the reason behind that? Like, you can create a legend to start whole new thought processes and belief systems, and you know, and that's a spell in itself. That's a manifestation spell. Yeah. So the stuff might not be real, but it could create something real.
I think. I'm not an expert on Skinwalker, but I've delved into Native American spirituality and their legend and oral history. The West, an Indian elder said, I think it was an interview, got it in my notes, and he said, the entire Western United States is very leaky. In other words, the veil between realities and dimensions is kind of in places. That's why they're sacred places. Right. So, in other words, the U.S. military, I mean, I've been to Sedona and I've been to Four Corners and all this stuff. You know, you see black helicopters. I saw them in Sedona because, and the Indian reservation, they'll tell you that there's military bases underground on Indian reservations. Because, you know, first of all, we treat Native Americans like shit. Yeah. Always have tried to genocide them, but then it's like all those sacred places. Well, those are natural portals. Yeah, and people got to get over this whole portal thing. That's the other third rail. They're like, oh no, you know, it's on cartoons at night with the Simpsons. It's like, now the U.S. military uses it every frickin' day. You know, get over it. There are natural ones and there are man-made ones. But the Southwest and the West, they're full of these sacred sites, Native American. And so I think Skinwalker Ranch is on one of these sacred sites. I think that's public knowledge. And so I think that's what's happening, because the Native American tribes will tell you about the snake people and other peoples that, you know, transdimensional communication is no big deal to them because they're shaman. They have a trained, you know, cadre of shamans who, oh yeah, you know, I talked to the snake people last night. They taught me how to better way to do this. And so it's not that big a deal once you get over the portal hump. You know, good God, just get over it. You know, the military's using them all over the place to ship cargo and goods on pallets, which are anti-gravity. You know, you got to get over that. So I think what's happening at Skinwalker, I don't know a lot about it, but it's one of these sites. The military knows where all these sites are because they want to control them, probably. And I don't know what the shenanigans are going on there. I know that there's ET visitations. There's all kinds of. I think it's a very, very strong PowerPoint where a lot of dimensions and realities are coming together, and it's like Grand Central Station.
So you're a believer. You think that the possibility of skinwalkers, there's something going on there that's worthy of attention, yeah?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. My opinion on it is honestly, it's based on very little evidence. I mean, I've read the book that John's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched a couple of episodes of the show, and I've read some of the legends behind it. But I don't know. There's something about it. I just can't get with it. Like I don't know why, man. And it sounds bad. I think maybe it's just the way the show is. Like I just can't.
Is it because the Mormons are involved?
Yeah, it's one of the UFO lore. It's been hyped up and put on TV, and I think it's on Ancient Aliens. It's been hyped up. But what Jean-Luc, what I'd say to you guys is look into the Native American traditions and spirituality and see what they say about sacred sites. Because the other conspiracy is this Dulce, New Mexico underground base.
Right. Phil Schneider.
Greys are doing these biological experiments and cloning and other things. That's on the Apache Indian reservation.
Well, and then the Vatican pushed off I think it was the Apache too, to the whole entire mountain range, and they built the world's largest dual telescope. It's called Lucifer. Is it called Lucifer or Satan? I can't remember. Whatever the acronym is, it's
like that.
Yeah, the Vatican made one called Lucifer. Yeah.
Lucifer, yeah, it's on this mountain in Arizona, which it's an old volcano, right? And then it's the world's largest. I don't remember what it is by something.
What does it stand for? Let me look at my phone.
Yeah. But it's like the world's largest whatever fucking telescope, and it's on this Native American. And they took them to court. The Native Americans took it to court, and they were like, we had monuments, but I guess supposedly the Catholic Church came in and destroyed all of their historic, prehistoric monuments, and we're like, no, nothing was ever here before us. We're here now, and. And the local sheriff and the federal sheriff, nobody can come there when the Vatican shows up. When the Vatican shows up and they go up on that thing, nobody's allowed there. None of the local people, nobody can show up. And it's what the fuck are they doing then? What are they are they looking at the stars, or are they doing some kind of mass ritual, or what's going on?
What it stands for, right, is large binocular telescope near infrared spectroscopic utility with camera and integral field unit for extra galactic research. That's Lucifer. But they're obviously having fun with it because they've obviously gone they've missed out the binocular telescope near bit, spectroscopic, and skipped all the way to the word utility just to make it into Lucifer.
Who knows what they really use it for? I don't know. But, Robert Morning Sky, a Native American elder, talks about a lot of this stuff and how, military stuff on Indian reservations is legion.
Mm-hmm.
You can even look that up. Mainstream, there's a reason for that. It's not just, it's away from prying eyes and away from the public. And Indian reservations have their own laws, but you can't see anything, I don't think, much above ground at the Dulce location, except for some ventilation fans, I believe. And so that's from satellite. The only way we can find them is by satellite. But a lot of this, there's a reason the U.S. military is out there on these reservations at these sacred sites.
It ties back into one of the things that Tom DeLonge did, was To the Stars thing, was I dug into this really early. They put a press release out we're going to do this thing. And it was the Indigenous people of Canada. Jean-Luc, you and I talked about this, and I can't remember the actual tribe and whatever it was, but it basically was in Canada. It was in British Columbia, somewhere around in that area. They were going to go up there. They were going to train all the Indigenous people how to be key grips and, video and all this stuff. And they're going to train them to be like Hollywood producers. But what they were really wanted to do was get the story of the white buffalo calf woman. Was the big story of whatever the Lakota. It was the Lakota tribe. It just came back to me, but the big famous story. So like the TTSA like gave them a whole bunch of money, and they were going to go up there and film, and they're going to train everybody on the reservation to be, have these skills to do this stuff. But you start digging into the the white buffalo calf woman. It's like she came from the sky. She gave them this pipe. Yeah, she told you how to communicate with all of them. It's like this whole thing. It's like you do the ceremony, and it's the white lady, Isis, Hathor. It's the same thing.
She's always there.
I'll send you something from a memo I wrote, or I pieced together. I write something about them.
Wow.
Page on Native American spirituality. The memo is about everything. History,
I read that memo.
Yeah, I've sent you bits and pieces. I'll send you that one tonight.
Yeah.
You can post it anywhere you want.
Post it right here in the link.
In the memo I go off and I write about how important it is for Americans and people worldwide with their own indigenous folks, how important that is, part of disclosure and the future of the human race and where we're going. That is an integral part, and that's why the U.S. government and military has put these people on reservations. I mean, at least they gave them land. God, they could have just wiped them all out 100 years ago.
Right.
But that probably would have, I don't know. But I'm not a fan of the U.S. cavalry anymore. I turned those movies we grew up on. It was all kill the Indians, and it was horrifying.
Moving back, pushing back. Yeah.
Native American legends and their spirituality, that is a key component for the human race going forward. Absolutely 100%.
Any of the shamans all over the world.
It's in my book that I think my character B talks about the Hopi a little bit. You win a Kachina doll. Now, Kachina doll were modeled after the sky gods, the people that came down and helped Native Americans learn skills. That's what Kachina dolls are. I'm pretty sure on that. And I have some at my farm. They're beautiful. And this Dogon tribe of Africa, they dress up in similar outfits, and these are the Namo people from Sirius.
Yeah,
helmets. I write about that because my character Guatha is part Dogon.
This book is amazing.
They're all in the. Oh, he's a Dogon.
Oh, part Dogon, really?
Yeah, I have a character Guatha. He's a Malian, a Black African, and he's a great character. He saves Bee's life, and his father is part Dogon. And so when he meets up with the Antonierbe people, they're like, really? Oh, he's part Dogon. African cosmology. They were all excited, even though he's black. Well, we don't like black people, but we're scientists. We'll put aside our racism, and they want to measure his cranium. That's what the Antonierbe SS did in Tibet.
The Germans. Let's see how big your head is. Come here.
They were really looking for Anunnaki technology. I think. Yeah. That makes most sense. Sure, a little racial theory for the Fuhrer and Himmler, but I think the Antonierbe SS were, and I write it this way, they were after technology, more Vedic information about Vimanas and anti-gravity, anything they could lay their hands on. And I give them credit because they got there way before anyone else did.
Yeah, I think they were probably directed. All the psychic connections and all the things that they had there, they were being told where to go. Like there was no way in hell they should have went to Tibet and did all the things they did there. Jean-Luc and I, we've talked about that a bunch of times, where there's no way they should have went to Tibet and gotten into that whole thing.
Oh no, I drilled down in the Antonierbe SS as far as basically anyone can go, and Joseph P. Farrell does a great job in his interviews with Daniel List and Dark Journalists. They're fascinating, and he talks about how far ahead the Germans really were. And it's like America takes credit for chemical lasers and transistors and all this fiber optic stuff. No, the Germans had that in World War II, and I write about that. It's nonsense to think. Every once in a while, you'll see an article in Scientific American. Oh, the Germans really did invent transistors. Whoops. But it goes mostly unnoticed.
Yeah.
I aggregate. This is my thing. I aggregate all these tidbits.
Yeah.
Farrell, he and I are kindred spirits. It's like the Germans were way ahead on a lot of stuff. People are like, oh no, they had some kooky programs, and they were far along on their atomic bomb.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, it's like I see it now. It's like this disbelief that what's considered our enemy might be technologically ahead of us, and quite seriously technologically ahead of us. A lot of people can't handle that. Like, it's like what's happening at the moment with this Chinese hypersonic bomb, yeah?
Well, I mean, the entire deep state, if you want to call it that, I mean, it's an alternate breakaway civilization. It's probably, I don't know, 100 million? And they've got technology that's 1,000 years ahead of the mainstream sector.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, that's impossible. No, it's not. If you do the homework and see the big picture and know your history, I mean, it's a lot of work. I admit it. And, you know, the three of us are just geared for that. We're wired for it. But it's harder for other people. I understand that. But it's like, I'm telling you, you know, and they leak out these little technology tidbits for us. But these are children's toys. They've got stuff that's really far ahead. I think they're, you know, the U.S. military is way out in the solar system, probably the galaxy. You know, I think William Tompkins was right on target. You know, sue me. You know, everything I've learned in my life and experience says this has got to be the true story of it, because nothing else makes sense. Why all the secrecy?
No,
and why the national security laws? Why FEMA? Why, you know, the Patriot Act? Why go to Iraq and Afghanistan again and again and again? It only makes sense if there's an entire sector of the world that everyone else, you know, the 3%, whatever you want to call it, and it you know. But I'm telling you, you know, just because you're in a billionaire or a rich family doesn't mean you're privy to that.
No,
but you may work on a compartmentalized project that's related to that. Very few people are read into the whole thing. You know, I think Greer's done a fantastic job piecing a lot of that together.
Yeah,
they have an incredible technology. Of course, the Tic Tacs are Lockheed Martin. Of course, that's why they talk about them. They have plausible deniability. Because Chris, you know, and Lou are going to say, "See, it's just our stuff. Go back to work. Go back to school. Have a nice day." And the narrative, they'll control the narrative. And that's the dangerous part. And the whole disclosure movement and everyone else's research over the last 50, 60 years is just all moot, because all the mainstream media, anytime Chris opens his mouth, he gets the New York Times or CNN or The Hill or, you know, the Washington Post.
So, but, yeah, this is good to explain this, because this for people who haven't seen like kind of what goes on the social media stuff and how fired up people have got about this. Like, it's good to see all you're saying is the way you guys seem to differ. Obviously, they've got an agenda and you haven't. Your agenda is much more personal, but like the stories are almost kind of the same. It's coming to that thing where it's like, we need to consider our past. We need to consider this, yeah? But you just know that you're never going to get it. That's the difference. Yeah? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what I'm trying to go with that, but what I'm trying to say is the stuff you're saying in terms of what your possible disclosure is, and then what they're saying, it's almost like they're so vague anyway. Yeah. Apart from these videos, that it could mean anything. So I don't really understand why people have got so upset with your take on some of this stuff. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, and to completely be honest, it's just like, it's secular, and I hate to say that, but it's secular to the point where, like, I have my good friends that I call friends that got me into this, and then that are friends, you know, Jean-Luc and all those, have called me out, like, why you listening? Like, you know, what's up with Warner? Like, Warner's knows what the fuck he's talking about, and he has a right to say whatever the hell he wants to say, just as anybody else. Luke can say whatever the fuck he wants. Chris can say what he wants. Warner can say, I can say whatever the fuck I want. John-Luc can say whatever he wants too. Everybody has a say. Why do you have to pick a side? Why does it have to be so secular? And why? What's the agenda? Or what is your thing? Can it be that everybody's half full of shit? Sure. Can it be everybody's right on? Yeah. But why can't we sit here and have an intelligent conversation between all of us instead of going, you're bad, you made me feel bad, your tweet, you like this? I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to play into any of that, because you're absolutely right. I mean, there's no need to create a division. Like, I mean, what happened the other day where, I don't know, man, you got upset, didn't you, John? And that's
yeah.
You can like what you like. You can not like what you don't like. You can do whatever you want. You just be yourself. Do you. And anybody who tells you can't, or gives you any grief for not thinking groupthink, it's a problem.
And I finally put a stop to it. I was like, fuck it. And I put that tweet out the other day. I'm like, look, everything's not the way it seems. I'm like, you need to regroup, rethink, whatever I said. And I did the Prince meme. Like, if the elevator tries to break you down, go fucking crazy. Because you can't do that. You can't peer pressure people into doing that. You can't get people to just do that. And I think that's, Warner, you're pointing it out. Like, there's a certain consolidated effort by the military industrial complex to make people believe whatever they want to believe. There's another thing that maybe could be the spiritual aspect of the whole thing that may be whatever, but how come you can't have both? And how come you can't just think whatever the fuck you want to think?
You can. I think these are all good points. Law of one, I believe in that. We're all one.
Right.
The cosmos. And so we're just different perspectives sort of battling it out. And
right.
It is kind of a war. And it's a spiritual war, as well as physical one, probably in secret a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
But it's correct. You don't have to really take sides. Just for myself personally, because of my friends who have died of cancer and AIDS, and the stories of abductions of people and children, and the sheer amount of lies that I've been told by my own father and grandfather, as well as the truths. And knowing, grown up with the U.S. military and the U.S. Congress here in Washington, D.C., and my experiences all over the world with my father, I mean, I have to take sides now in this point in time. In the future, I'd like to, hey, everyone, let's all get along and work together as one. Mm-hmm. But until we get there, I'm sorry. I mean, if the CIA it really is capturing a lot of children and torturing them and making them into super soldiers, which is a horrible thing to think about, but there's more and more people coming out every day, and this is what they've been through. There's got to be some truth in that. And, I'm sorry. It's like, you've got to go with your gut feeling. You got to, you have a relationship with the cosmos that's spiritual. It's like, I choose to be on the side of the light because right now the earth is out of balance.
Right.
So we have to deal with that. And the only way to deal with that is to bring light upon it. Mm-hmm. Everyone's like, well, it's war. It's like, well, it's, it's like the other day, I posted a tweet on Chris Mellon's site, and I said, for once we agree, military pilots aren't being heard. Because one thing they didn't talk about, was I think millions of reports from civilian and military pilots alike of UFOs and motherships and, planes disappearing and all that stuff that was just left out of the CNN, Washington Post narrative. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, finally we agree on something, because I want to still work with him. I don't think we will, but it's like someday I'd like to work with him to make the world a better place. I'm trying to. Yeah. But I mean, I get tons of shit on Twitter, oh, you're negative and you're a Nazi and all this shit. And it's like, I'm just telling certain hard truths. I'm not supporting them or saying, these people aren't nice people. It's like, there's a lot of disinformation, lies, and counterintelligence going on, and the average person can't see through it.
No, we know that
from up in it. I can see it.
You've been there. You have literally guerrilla knowledge. Like you've been there.
My father was psyoping me. I mean, I'm sorry. Mm. And I saw through it by the time I was in my 30s. I was like, you fucking lied to me. And he said, son, it's for national security. It's those dangerous topics to talk about. And I said, fuck you, Majestic 12. It's real. And people are still debating it, whether, I don't believe in Majestic 12. I don't believe in, UFOs or, it's all, I mean, we're still debating this because people in authority in roundtables call it the deep state. I don't care what you call it. They've engineered it like this. Mm-hmm. Because I can tell you through military history, all wars are fought psychologically as well as physically with weapons.
Of course.
In fact, more so probably.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know. They're not military historians. They don't know. I don't expect them to know. God, they just take people's word. Don't believe me. I don't have a lot of credibility. These people are spooks. They have 70 years of keeping this shit secret from us, and you're going to Chris and Lou and going, they're amazing messiahs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. 99% of people are ignorant and asleep by design in the world.
Well, I think that the idea that people that want to know this stuff see themselves as truth seekers, but
Well, they want to
One
see
thing
the
that I find
cartoons
is
and the kitty cats and the nice smiling alien cartoons.
you're never going to find truth if someone's giving it to you.
Yeah, you're not going to
That's what I
find
think, yeah.
anything solid, with the lightweight stuff. Oh, I just want to talk about a sighting in 1968 in Pennsylvania. Who gives a shit? It's actually not funny because this is the main
Kecksburg, right?
narrative that Richard Dolan is putting out. Gosh, we should re-examine and reopen the
Kecksburg, right?
Yeah, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, like over and over and over and again. And it's like, okay, if no one else can see it, Greer and I came out and Daniel List did too. This guy's a paid informant because Richard Dolan used to be a firebrand. He was on the cutting edge of disclosure 20 years ago, even 15 years ago. But right at 2017, what happened? I learned a lot from Richard Dolan. I admire him.
Mate,
And if he's been blackmailed, well, I'm very sorry.
the first proper
I think they did
UFO
blackmail.
book I got was Dolan's History of the Security State UFO book. It's a huge one and really technical, really well written, and really well researched and stuff. And I don't know. So yeah, it's all been a bit of a surprise the last few years, man, and how things changed. And I don't know.
But all of that's a perception, and they're into perception management. This whole thing is perception management. Like it goes back to all of that, right, Warner? I mean, the whole thing is perception management. So it's like, well, if these guys are in on it, I mean, well, like, okay, these guys are like the stout. These are like the UFO guys that we all listen to, and they're on this, and all these other people. So yeah, and even if they are not in on it, even if like let's go the complete opposite of this that Dolan's not compromised and all this shit. But what if he's been psyoped enough that he doesn't even know he's been psyoped, or the majority of the population of it is?
Smart. He's like a college professor in the lounge.
I'm not a dummy, but I mean, I've had shit happen to me where I'm like, I don't know if I'm thinking is right, and there's that whole psychological aspect of it too. I've had psychological attacks.
I have nothing against the guy. I told you, I admire his work.
Well, of course.
I mean, I know other people have been blackmailed. I've talked to people who have been, and it's
right.
a dirty world, and people have got to stop, looking at the cotton candy shit. And otherwise, we're not going to get the whole disclosure narrative is not moving forward.
Right.
It's what they want to do. They want to slow it down and move it sideways. Talk about this over here, but don't.
Right, like to talk about the shit from 1968, but like what I'm trying to get at is from my perspective is what they don't want us to focus on is the consciousness, psychic, the every ability that all of us humans have to be able to connect to whatever this is and to whatever we're experiencing now as humans and connect to each other. That's what they don't want us to get into. That's my 2 cents, and I have no data. I have no documents to prove any of that, but I feel that they just don't want us to realize that we're all one. We're all part of the same thing. We all have powers beyond we can even imagine, and that we can tap into them at any time if we know what we're doing. And we come from that with love and empathy. And I think that that's what they want to get us to. They want to like turn us into a war thing or the us against them thing. But that's just me.
No, I think you're 100% correct. They want to distract us with everything. And I never wanted to go on social media, and I probably won't last very long, but on Twitter. But I get hate mail every day. Hey, you're part of PSYOP as a Mellon. It's like, well, I can't blame you.
You're the 1%er, Mellon. You're the 1%er.
That's the other one running.
No one in the deep state has a sense of humor. Trust me on that. They really don't.
They don't. They don't.
Sociopaths, they think they're funny.
They're not.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think you're right. I think you're correct on all that. And I think the Great Awakening is happening, and people are becoming more spiritual and psychic by the day. And they know that's coming. But instead of coming within 20 years, they want to slow it down to 50 or 75.
And they want to manage that message, right? And they want to manage that the whole way, just steer it.
A lot of these admirals and generals, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them have investments in these military contractors.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want to disappear into the sunset with their pensions and investments intact. I'm talking millions of dollars worth.
Right.
And my family fortune and my personal net worth, that's all blood money. I totally admit that. As far as I know, I'm the only one saying it. Hey, no one else is coming. All the other Mellons are watching.
Your cousins are mad right now. All of your cousins, like, shut the fuck up.
They're watching the yacht race. I don't know.
Let them run the truck into the wall, and we're going to walk away.
That's what this is about. They've been controlling the narrative for 75 years. Mm-hmm. You ask a young person what a Foo Fighter is, and they say that's a band from the 90s.
Yeah, Dave Grohl's
They don't realize it's a UFO from World War II that was seen by all sides.
But you know what?
No one knew what it was.
Good for Dave Grohl for doing that.
Yeah.
Props to Dave Grohl for doing that.
At least they kept the name alive.
And he's from Virginia, by the way, Warner, in your backyard. Yeah.
So, and I like their music, but but you ask young people
who doesn't,
history, and it's not taught anymore.
No.
And the esoteric stuff is not taught unless you have a lust or passion for this alternative. Gosh, what's a Foo Fighter? What happened in World War II?
But the esoteric stuff is taught in religious institutions all over the planet, and they don't know it. They just treat it as a religion.
I knew nothing about the occult, hardly at all, until 15 years ago, and I started drilling down on it.
But you did, because you grew up in a Catholic or a Christian Episcopalian, but still, I mean, that's still the occult. I'm going to call it out right now. That's still some type of esoteric, occultish thing.
Yeah, everything is occult. The military is occult. Corporations are occults.
All of it.
Google's occult. I mean, if you want to get down to it, the UFO movement is occult with different factions. Everything has different factions within those cults. And it's the confusion, and they've done a masterful job. Hell, I'm confused.
Goebbels was a genius. And
I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. It does make sense, but it's taken 30 years for me to do so. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I can put a few neurons together. It's hard.
It's hard.
And they've done a great job of obscuring this for 10,000 years. But the internet, that's balanced out the playing field somewhat. And there's not a lot of. In social media, it's kind of a shit show, but at least some people are talking about it. And there's probably 1% or 2% of people out there who are listening and trying to figure it out for themselves. I'm presenting my opinions, but that's all they are,
Yeah. That's all we have. I mean, and think about this. We're talking to a guy across the continent from us. You and I are on the same continent, but we're separated by a whole bunch of states. We're talking to a guy across the ocean instantaneously from video.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, I know he was held up in your basement lair dungeon. That's why he's growing the beard. He's been there for years. Don't go downstairs. Jean-Luc's down there. He'll bite you.
Yeah, I'm directly below you now, actually. I'm just in my subterranean tunneling vehicle.
He's talking to us from Agartha. Which is under Tibet, which I do talk about in my new book. You'll like the Agartha scene.
Your new book is great. We're gonna. Everybody should go buy Lion, Tiger, Bear, and
all profits go to wounded veteran charities.
Every single profit goes to wounded veteran charities, and that's amazing.
I don't need the 10 cents from Amazon. I just put it in my foundation.
And I have a lot of friends that are wounded veterans, and I'm telling you, these guys and girls are amazing. They've gone through some shit, and they are searching for the truth right now. Honestly, all of them are. They're going like, why did I do this? What's going on? And a lot of the people that I know that are wounded veterans or veterans, I'm saying whatever, but veterans are another going, they are the ones that are seeking the truth. Well, honestly.
I've had Iraq, Gulf 1, Gulf 2, these guys saying, I saw weird shit in the sky firing at the enemy. And then it disappeared. And it's like, was it in a black triangle shape? Well, it was black. And then it disappeared. And I said, well, it shifted frequencies. It's optical invisibility, which is the hat trick on the F-35 fighter. Wink, wink. That's why they painted the hat trick on the tail of the prototype that has optical invisibility. Guess where we got that from? This is, the veterans are key to all this.
The thing that blew up in Osama bin Laden, they found Osama bin Laden, and the visible helicopter broke off.
Oh, please. That whole that stupid story of trying to find Osama. Come on, they could track him by his biological electromagnetic signature. They spun that into a wild tale. And those SEAL Team 6 guys, I've been told that all SEAL teams are psychics. They're all trained. They're all remote viewers.
I've met
how they can communicate with one another. Like there's a baddie around the corner.
So I've trained.
They have comms, but they're all psychic. And I believe that.
I've actually got
well-trained, well-vetted people. There's a guy who came out with a video. I can't remember where it is. And he was going to go into he went into the SEALs in the 80s. And he sat down and they said, how would you feel if you had to go into space and fight aliens? And everyone in the classroom laughed. And the instructor, an officer, said, what the fuck is so funny? And these guys, you could have heard a pin drop. And he said there was a lot of training that he doesn't remember. And he says he and his fellow SEAL buddies have had missing time. Like my friend Eric Hecker, who was in Antarctica, he has a channel. Mm-hmm. What happened to the 3 months? I can't remember what happened in 3 months. This blank slate technology I think it's very real.
Well, yeah.
They have honed it now that they can, these people doing missing time, whether it's out in space or, you're fighting someone on an asteroid or you're wherever, or you're in Iraq or somewhere underground, they can erase all that. But in 3 to 5% of people, it doesn't work. It starts to break down. And these are the people that are waking up and telling these stories. Like Michael Jaco he's a Navy SEAL, I believe, or Special Forces. He's come out and said, talked about all kinds of wild, interesting stuff. And it's because they blank slated the hell out of you. And I know for a fact that the Janet airliners that go into Area 51 from Las Vegas, they blank slate you when you come home from your job every day. And then you go there.
You're bored and you get off, yeah.
You remember what you're doing. I mean, that's how sophisticated it is. And that's how this whole system works. But of course, when you're doing that to so many people, it's going to backfire eventually. And
they live their lives on the edge of a knife that I can't even explain. Like they've seen things and done things and been a part of things that are, things that you and all three of us couldn't even imagine, and it's not like they asked for it or they wanted it. Like Warner, like you were saying, you just get, oh, you're in this program and blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden you're this guy and you can do this. And then you're part of this troop and you're part of this brigade. And then like, you're that guy. And then you're doing all this stuff. And then one day you get back home and you're just that guy.
There's all kinds of strange stories from all wars. But since World War II, there's been a lot of things written up about regular soldiers as well as special units, special forces and Rangers and things. That they've come in contact with strange things in Vietnam. I was telling you about the spider meat.
Yeah.
They saw bizarre things, and they were never trained. Even the guy who was in the Ranger Battalion, who's in his 70s, who told me that.
No, they weren't ready for that.
As we got a lot of trainings, they told us about the UFOs and all this stuff, and they said, you're going to see some weird stuff. But they never trained us for what we had to do. And he wouldn't talk about what he had to do, but I think he had to fight some ETs probably, and maybe they weren't susceptible to automatic fire. They were probably invincible, and they lost people. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's where the majority of his Ranger Battalion went. And you can't dig this information up. I've tried. He said, I'm not going to tell you the number of the unit. You wouldn't find any way. It's scrubbed from history. It never existed.
So like, this is the only way I believe any of this shit, Warner, is because I was in a college that was a center of excellence for the NSA, and I studied for information security. So it's the so IT security, right? So I was in Eastern Michigan. The CIA, NSA, all that shit ran that, and I was old. I was 28. Everybody was 18, but I went into it old, right? So I was interviewing with all these agencies, and I was like, it was at the time I was just new, my first wife. I was just married. I was into it. I was like, all this stuff. I'm like, I'm interviewing. I want to go through all this stuff. And I went to my director and I was like, what's going to happen to me? I want to get into one of these things because I'm into this and I really want to get into it because I'm like IT security, and I want to do all this stuff. And they're like, listen, he's like, I'm going to tell you that everything you've learned in the past 4 years is great historic knowledge. Everything you learned is cool 30 years ago. They're going to take you, they're going to scrub you from the internet. You're not going to exist anywhere. All your Facebook, your Instagram, all this shit. This is like 2010, 12. All the shit that you just don't exist anymore. It's going to take about 6 months. But in that 6 months, you're going to go away. You're not going to see your family. You're going to be somewhere, and they're going to teach you all of the stuff that's going on now. So all of the stuff that you've learned right now, the top of the art, the most cutting edge stuff that you've learned is great for history. And they're going to teach you all that other stuff. And you're going to learn what's really going on. And then after that, you can be indispensable for whatever. And I'm like, cool. I'm like, what does that get me? About, $80,000 a year. And I'm like, okay. And they may take this whole box that you're in and all these other guys and all this tech, and they may like just airlift this stuff and drop you in the desert somewhere, and you just don't leave there. And you just, you pee there, you eat there and all that stuff. And you're doing all these things and you're helping the whole thing. And then they just pick that box up and they're taking it. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that.
Well, that's
but there's people doing that. There's fucking people. And that's real. And there's people doing that.
These Jason Bourne movies, which are just ridiculous.
Right.
Well, there's a grain of truth to it because it's MK Ultra and they train people this way.
Yeah.
And that's what he was.
Right.
Type. But, they're trying to get all the young people to join, all that stuff. Join the Space Force. But they don't know what they're getting into. And
he told me, he looked at me. He was an older guy, and he looked at me and he's like, you don't want to do this.
You don't want to do it. I have never really. I thought about joining the Navy and Marines out of college, but I was like,
did your dad tell you to stop doing that? Did your dad tell you not to do that?
He wanted me to, and I said, no, I want to be a
He wanted you to? He wanted you to.
Oh, absolutely. A military family. I was interested in the military. I knew a lot about it. I enjoyed being around him and the Navy. And
right. But he was like, don't do it. He was like, don't do it.
Yeah, uniform, yes, sir. I would have been a worse officer. Wait a minute, I'm not going to obey this order. I'm not going to kill my own guys. In the brig. And my dad was like, you know what? You're probably right. You think too much for yourself. I want you to follow orders blindly and be a good soldier. And I'm just, as much as I love the Navy, I would have been great on a submarine or something. I would have had problems with
everybody
irrational orders. Just because all throughout school I asked all the uncomfortable questions and I got pushback from everyone. And I'm like, can you imagine what the military would be like with that? Well, they put you in the brig. I'd be busted down to Seaman Third. Officer. They would really not appreciate that. And so I remember my friend said, join the naval intelligence. And I was like, do I have to wear a suit and tie every day? And they were like, of course, a uniform. I'm like, nah. I don't like wearing a tie.
Fuck off, man. No way. I want to drive fast and take chances.
T-shirt, and I want to be on a racetrack, and I want to be working on a race car. Was my thing. But I read books. I educated myself. I wanted to be in the military, but then I wouldn't have been a good team player.
Well, how about you, Jean-Luc? You were the same way, right?
Yeah, part of me.
He was in the military.
Thing for me is
look at that beard. He looks that looks
Taliban. He's a Taliban. It's a rare English Taliban volunteer.
I'm actually talking now from the Kush Mountains of Afghanistan.
Allah Akbar. That is great.
Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar.
We will crush the infidel.
That's the only time I've heard in this whole talk is they cut that bit. That was it.
It's like God willing, but it's like, well, wait a minute, which God?
Yeah. Your God, my God. Oh, God. Ingo Swan. Ingo Swan.
ET God do you want to give your
Well, you know what we were talking about before? This whole idea of the suppression of the psychic abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right. So
you and I have experienced this stuff, and okay, go, John. But
what I find interesting is from reading around recently, who suppresses that idea most?
The church, the Catholic Church.
Yeah, in society, if someone comes out and says they're psychic, they're usually considered to be a bit
the neon light. You're like, oh, girl, leave him. He's going to cheat on you.
Exactly,
Who's that?
Gypsy Rose, or all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you kind of get tagged with it.
The Dionne Warwick and stuff. It's like the whole Psychic Friends network. It's just like, Miss Cleo. It's like Miss Cleo. Like, oh, girl, he's cheating on you. He's got the girl on the side. You should leave him now.
I had a lady come to me when I was about 17 with my girlfriend at the time. And I was walking through town and this lady came up and she was a Romany gypsy.
Oh, yeah.
She gave me my girlfriend some heather. And my girlfriend said, oh, thanks very much, yeah. And as we went to walk away, she goes, no, he pays me for it, yeah. And I was like, well, I don't have any money. And she basically just went like, I can see inside of your soul and you're a bad man, yeah.
Because you don't have any money.
Goes, he's a bastard and he's always going to be a bastard. Like that.
Wow.
What? I'm just like, all I'm doing is going out for what? I literally had no money. I would have given her a quid for it, yeah. Like, I didn't have any money. I was like, I ain't got any money.
I'm fresh out. Like, hold on a minute.
Never forgot it. I just felt like proper cursed after that. I was like, Jesus, man, like, we know about you.
Yeah, we know about you. Yeah, you're just a dirty bloke, and you're never gonna procreate. Like, what is the deal with that? Everybody drive 300.
But the people on Twitter really have a point. We should think positively,
yes.
And we should try to gather. But that doesn't mean you can wholly ignore
the bullshit.
Some people have to stand up. I have to stand up.
Yeah.
I won't be able to sleep at night if at least I won't say to a few people, my cousin is lying, and here's why. And oh, by the way, this is what my dad taught me, so I know why they're doing it. And my wife is CIA, for fuck's sake. I mean, she could see through anything. She's smarter than me. She's like, oh, that's paid informant, Richard Dolan. Oh, Greer's been, mind controlled or whatever. She's seen it. Because they put a Nazi on her when she started dating me and I started educating her about the UFO stuff in MJ-12. They put a Nazi on her and they slowly drove her out of the CIA. They called her a philosopher.
Wow.
This guy chased her around a desk and all this stuff.
Wow.
And she quit. And that's how they do it. So you can't sue them. Not that you could anyway. They're
right.
But that's
wow.
Dirty world. And God, these people are wandering around with flowers in their hair going, everything's great. I wish it was, but it ain't.
I'm with you. Listen, guys, I'm calling it. I'm exhausted, but it's been awesome speaking to you both.
All right.
I love you guys. Honestly.
I'll see you.
Yeah, you take care, man. Warner, pleasure, man. John.
Man.
I love you both. Thank you so much.
Big kiss.
See you later, buddy.
Good night, buddy. Bye-bye.
Take care. That was good, dude. That was good.